In Seoul, they say Chairman Kang can topple a government with a single phone call. He is the shadow king of the underworld, a man who commands thousands of soldiers with a whisper. But inside his own mansion, he was losing a war against a 17-year-old girl. Hana, his only daughter, was a hurricane in a silk dress. She had sent 12 world-class tutors to the hospital and forced 5 elite nannies to flee the country. She didn't want a teacher. She wanted an audience for her rage. The chairman was desperate. He offered $1 million salary to anyone who could tame her, but the city's elite realized some spirits are too broken to be bought. Then came Maya. Maya didn't have a PhD, a black belt, or a drop of noble blood. She was a waitress from Brooklyn who'd moved to Korea to escape her own ghosts, working double shifts at a greasy 24-hour diner. She didn't look like a savior. She looked like someone who had spent her whole life surviving. The day Hana walked into that diner to cause chaos, she expected the usual: fear, bowing, and an immediate apology. Instead, she met a woman who didn't even look up from her order pad. While the world's most expensive experts tried to handle the Mafia's daughter, Maya was the only one who realized Hana wasn't looking for a tutor. She was looking for an equal. In 60 seconds, with one tray of spilled coffee and a single look of cold indifference, this simple waitress did what an entire criminal empire couldn't. She made the most dangerous girl in Korea sit down, shut up, and listen. But it wasn't Maya's strength that broke through Hana's walls. It was a secret they both shared. A secret that would eventually force the Mafia boss to choose between his empire and the only woman his daughter ever respected. This is the story of the girl who had everything, the woman who had nothing, and the moment their worlds collided. Can a waitress really tame a Mafia heiress? We're about to find out. Like this video if you love a good underdog story, and subscribe to join our community of storytellers. Let's get back to the mansion. The Swiss psychologist's scream still echoed in Chairman Kang's memory 3 days later. Dr. Heinrich Müller had come highly recommended, a man who'd rehabilitated the children of warlords and dictators. He'd lasted 47 minutes with Hana before fleeing the mansion with a twisted ankle and tears streaming down his face. That made 12. 12 experts, 12 failures, 12 more reminders that money couldn't solve every problem. Chairman Kang stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his office, watching Seoul sprawl beneath him like a kingdom he'd conquered. At 53, he was a legend in the shadows. Politicians took his calls at midnight. Police chiefs looked the other way when his trucks moved through the city. He controlled construction, gambling, real estate worth billions. He'd destroyed rival organizations with nothing more than a whispered command. He was power incarnate, but he couldn't reach his own daughter. His chief advisor, Mr. Park, cleared his throat from the doorway. "Sir, the recruitment agencies say no one else will take the position. The word has spread throughout Seoul. Even at $1 million, no one wants to risk it." Kang didn't turn around. On his desk sat a photograph from 10 years ago. Himself, his wife, and a gap-toothed 7-year-old Hana, all of them laughing at some forgotten moment of joy. His wife had been dead for a decade, killed in what the official reports called a car accident. Everyone knew the truth. A rival family had sent a message. Kang had sent one back, written in blood and fire. That family no longer existed. But revenge hadn't healed the little girl who'd watched her mother's casket sink into the earth. It hadn't brought back the sunshine child who'd believed in fairy tales. Instead, it had created something else. Something wounded and wild and utterly beyond his control. "She wasn't always like this," Kang said quietly. "Before her mother died, she was different. She laughed. She danced. She had hope." "I know, sir. Expand the search. International candidates. Different approaches. I don't care if they're unconventional. Maybe we've been thinking about this wrong." 3 floors above, Hana sat cross-legged on her bed, scrolling through Dr. Mueller's confidential files on her laptop. She'd hacked his computer in the first 10 minutes of their session, downloaded everything, then spent the next half-hour casually mentioning his failed marriage, his affair with a colleague, his daughter's drug addiction that he'd paid to keep quiet. The look on his face had been exquisite. She wasn't cruel for cruelty's sake. She just needed them to understand. These people with their degrees and theories and pitying looks didn't want to help her. They wanted to fix her, make her compliant, sand down her edges until she fit into the pretty box society had built for the chairman's daughter. None of them saw her. They saw a problem to solve, a challenge to overcome, A fat paycheck if they could just make the broken girl behave. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mina. Club Octagon tonight. VIP table. You coming? Hana stared at the message. The club kids who orbited around her weren't friends. They were tourists in her life, attracted to the danger of her father's name, eager to tell stories about partying with the Mafia princess. They knew her reputation, but not her heart. They'd never bothered to ask what it felt like to be 17 and already certain you'd never be safe, never be normal, never be free. She texted back. Maybe. It was 2:47 a.m. when Hana decided she was bored enough to cause some trouble. She gathered her usual entourage, Mina, Jisoo, and two boys whose names she could never remember, and told her driver to take them somewhere unexpected. Somewhere real. Somewhere that wasn't designed to cater to people like her. Where are we going? Mina asked from the back seat of the Mercedes. Itaewon, Hana said. I want street food. Something greasy and authentic. The driver's eyes flicked to hers in the rearview mirror, questioning. Itaewon at 3 in the morning wasn't exactly safe, even for the chairman's daughter. Especially for the chairman's daughter. It's fine, Hana said. We're just getting food. They ended up at a place called Lucky Star Diner, a dump with cracked vinyl booths and flickering fluorescent lights. Perfect. The kind of place where her presence would cause maximum disruption. She could already imagine the bowing, the stammering, the frantic calls to managers, the thrill of watching normal people scramble. The bell above the door chimed as they entered. The diner was mostly empty except for a few drunk salarymen in one corner and a tired-looking woman behind the counter. The woman was black, probably American, late 20s, with her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She was wiping down the counter and didn't even look up when they walked in. Hana felt the first spark of interest. Usually people noticed her immediately. Her clothes were expensive. Her bearing was unmistakable. She'd perfected the art of commanding a room just by entering it. But this woman kept wiping, her movements methodical and unhurried. Hello, Mina said, her voice sharp with indignation. We'd like a table? The woman, her name tag said Maya, finally looked up. Her gaze swept over them with zero recognition, zero interest, zero anything. Just the flat assessment of someone who'd seen 1,000 drunk kids stumble through her door and knew exactly what they were. Sit anywhere, Maya said, her voice carrying the unmistakable accent of New York. Menus are on the table. She went back to wiping. Hana blinked. That was it. No bowing. No special treatment. No recognition at all. They slid into a booth, and Hana felt something unfamiliar stir in her chest. Curiosity, maybe. Or challenge. She watched as Maya moved through the diner with quiet efficiency, refilling coffee for the salaryman, calling orders back to someone in the kitchen in surprisingly decent Korean. This place is disgusting, Jisoo whispered. Why are we here? I'm testing something, Hana said. When Maya came to take their order, Hana decided to escalate. She was holding a full tray of waters, carefully balanced, when Hana's foot shot out. The tray went flying. Water and glasses crashed to the floor in an explosion of sound and liquid. The salaryman jerked upright. Mina gasped. The boys laughed nervously. Maya stood perfectly still, water dripping from her apron, glass shards scattered around her feet. She looked down at the mess, then up at Hana. Her expression didn't change. No shock. No anger. Nothing. Oops, Hana said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. So clumsy of you. This was the moment. This was where people usually crumbled. Where they apologized profusely, where they scrambled to clean up, where they recognized who she was and understood they couldn't afford to offend her. Maya reached down, picked up the tray, and set it on a nearby table. She pulled a towel from her apron and began methodically picking up the larger pieces of glass. Still silent. Still unhurried. I said I'm sorry, Hana pushed. Aren't you going to say it's okay? Maya looked up. Her eyes were dark brown, almost black, and completely unreadable. You're not sorry. You did that on purpose. And no, it's not okay. Those glasses cost money. The air in the diner changed. Mina inhaled sharply. Everyone in Seoul knew who Hana was, or at least suspected. No one spoke to her like this. No one. Do you know who I am? Hana asked, her voice dropping to something dangerous. Don't know. Don't care. Maya finished picking up the glass and stood, holding the towel full of shards. You want to order food? Order food. You want to play games? There's a PC bang down the street. You don't get to come into someone's workplace and make their life harder just because you're bored. From the kitchen, an elderly Korean man's voice called out something in rapid Korean. Maya responded in the same language, her accent imperfect but functional, saying something about everything being under control. Hana felt something crack in her chest. Not anger. Something else. Something she couldn't name. She's Chairman Kang's daughter. One of the boys blurted out, his voice high with fear. You can't talk to her like that. Do you know what he could do to this place? Maya's gaze shifted to the boy, then back to Hana. For a long moment, she just looked at her, really looked at her, in a way that made Hana feel suddenly, uncomfortably visible. I don't care if she's the Queen of England, Maya said finally. In here, she's a customer. Customers show respect, or customers leave. Your choice. The entire diner had gone silent. Even the drunk salarymen were watching now, sensing the tension crackling through the air. Hana's friends were already standing, ready to leave, ready to call someone, ready to unleash the consequences that always followed when people disrespected the chairman's daughter. But Hana held up one hand, stopping them, because something impossible had just happened. Someone had set a boundary with her. Someone had looked at her, really looked at her, and hadn't seen a problem to fix or a threat to fear or a paycheck to earn. Someone had seen a spoiled kid making a mess and had called it exactly what it was. Sit down, Hana said to her friends. Hana, we should go, Mina whispered urgently. This woman is insane. She doesn't know what she's doing. I said sit down. They sat. Hana turned back to Maya, who was still standing there, towel full of glass in one hand, absolutely unmoved by the drama unfolding around her. I'll have the kimchi jjigae, Hana said, and I'll pay for the glasses. Whatever they cost. Maya's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or calculation. She nodded once and walked back to the kitchen. For the next hour, Hana sat in that cracked vinyl booth and watched Maya work. She watched her serve food to the salarymen with the same efficiency she showed everyone else. Watched her banter in broken Korean with the old man in the kitchen, Mr. Kim, she heard him called. Watched her handle a drunk customer's wandering hands with a single sharp word that had him sitting back down and apologizing. She watched someone who existed in the world without apology, without pretense, without the desperate need for validation that Hana saw in everyone else around her. Her friends eventually stopped trying to make conversation. They picked at their food and exchanged nervous glances and clearly couldn't understand why Hana was content to sit in this dump and stare at a waitress. At 4:30 a.m., as the sky began to lighten, Hana's driver texted that her father's men were getting worried. Time to go home to her gilded cage. She stood and pulled out her wallet, extracting several bills. Too many bills. She left them on the table and walked to the counter where Maya was tallying receipts. The extra is for the glasses, Hana said. Maya looked at the money, then at Hana. This is too much. Consider it an apology for being a brat. I don't need your charity. It's not charity. It's payment for a lesson. Maya's eyebrow rose. What lesson? Hana smiled, but it wasn't her usual smile, the one that was all edges and warning. This one was smaller, more real. That not everyone in this city is afraid of me. She turned to leave, but Maya's voice stopped her. You're not scary. You're just loud. There's a difference. Hana looked back over her shoulder. What's the difference? Scary is what happens when you have real power and know how to use it. Loud is what happens when you're hurting and don't know how to stop. Maya's gaze was steady, unflinching. You're not scary. You're just hurt. For the second time that night, Hana felt something crack inside her. But this time, she recognized it. It was the sound of someone seeing her. Actually seeing her. Maybe, Hana said quietly. Then she walked out into the Seoul morning, her friends trailing behind her like confused satellites. In the car, Mina finally exploded. What was that? Why didn't you do anything? She was so disrespectful. Your father should shut that place down. No, Hana said, staring out the window at the city waking up. He shouldn't. But she. I said no. Hana's voice carried the command that came from being raised in a world where her word was law. No one touches that diner. No one touches her. Understood. Mina fell silent. The boys nodded nervously. Hana closed her eyes and thought about Maya's words. You're not scary. You're just hurt. No one had ever said that to her before. No one had ever looked past the armor to see the wound beneath. She made a decision then, one that would change everything. She was going back to that diner. not to cause trouble, not to assert dominance, but because for the first time in 10 years, someone had looked at her and hadn't immediately started calculating how to use her or fix her or survive her. Someone had just seen a hurt kid. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what she needed someone to see. When Chairman Kang received the report about the diner incident at noon the following day, he was in a meeting with a city councilman who owed him 3 favors and a construction contract. The councilman was sweating through his expensive shirt, promising things he'd never be able to deliver, when Mr. Park entered with a tablet. "Sir, you need to see this." Kang excused himself, leaving the councilman to marinate in his own anxiety. In his private office, he watched security footage from his daughter's Mercedes. Watched her kick over a tray in some dive in Itaewon. Watched a black woman, American, by the looks of her, refuse to back down. Watched his daughter, the girl who'd sent grown men running in fear, sit quietly for an hour and just observe. "Who is she?" Kang asked. "Maya Johnson, 28, American citizen, been in Korea for 2 years. Works at Lucky Star Diner in Itaewon. Before that, Brooklyn, New York. No criminal record. No family in Korea. Sends money home monthly to a sick mother." Park pulled up more information. "She's clean, sir. Just a waitress trying to make a living. Background check. Full one. I want to know everything about her by tonight." "Sir." Kang replayed the footage, watching his daughter's face. The anger melting into something else. Curiosity. Interest. The smallest hint of vulnerability. Just do it. The background check arrived at 11 p.m., and it painted a picture Kang understood intimately. Maya Johnson had run from something. An ex-boyfriend named Marcus Williams, 2 domestic violence reports filed then withdrawn, a final emergency room visit with a broken rib and a concussion. Then she'd vanished. Closed her bank account, quit her job, and disappeared. She'd surfaced in Seoul 6 months later, working under the table until she'd gotten proper documentation. She was a survivor. Like him. Like his daughter. Kang made a decision that would have seemed insane to anyone who didn't understand desperation. He picked up his phone and dialed. "Park, I need you to arrange a meeting. With the waitress. Tomorrow. Make it an invitation she can't refuse, but don't threaten her. I want her curious, not terrified." "Sir, are you certain? 12 experts have failed. 12 credentialed, experienced professionals couldn't reach my daughter. This woman did something in one night that none of them managed. I want to know how." Maya received the invitation the next morning from Mr. Kim, who looked terrified when he handed her the cream-colored envelope with no return address. "A man came by this morning before opening. Very expensive suit. Very serious face. He left this for you and said someone important wants to meet you." Maya's hands went cold. She'd been in Korea long enough to understand what expensive suits and serious faces meant in this city. She'd crossed someone. The girl from last night. Chairman Kang's daughter. She opened the envelope. Inside was a single card with an address in Gangnam and a time. 2 p.m. today. No explanation. No threat. Just an expectation that she'd appear. "You should go," Mr. Kim said quietly. "Men like that, you don't ignore them." "But Maya, be careful. Very careful." She arrived at the address 15 minutes early because terrified people arrive early. The building was sleek glass and steel, the kind of place where the security guards wore tailored suits, and the lobby smelled like money. She gave her name to the receptionist, who made a call, then directed her to a private elevator that required a key card to operate. The elevator opened directly into an office that occupied the entire top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul like the city was a toy model. The furniture was minimal, but probably cost more than she made in a year. And behind a massive desk sat a man who radiated power the way the sun radiated heat. Chairman Kang. He stood when she entered, which surprised her. Men like him didn't usually show respect to people like her. "Miss Johnson, thank you for coming. Please sit." Maya sat on the edge of a leather chair that probably cost more than her entire apartment. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she forced herself to stay still, to meet his gaze, to not show fear. "I assume you know who I am," Kang said. "Chairman Kang. I also assume I'm here because of what happened at the diner with your daughter." "You assume correctly." He studied her with eyes that had seen everything humanity had to offer and hadn't been impressed. "Most people who disrespect my daughter end up regretting it. Do you know why you're not one of them? Because she told you not to?" A small smile touched his lips. "Yes." She gave explicit orders that no one was to touch you or your workplace. That's unprecedented. Hana doesn't protect people. She destroys them. With respect, sir, I don't think she wants to destroy people. I think she wants someone to see her as something other than a problem to solve. Kang leaned back in his chair. Tell me about yourself, Miss Johnson. Why did you come to Korea? I needed a fresh start. From what? Maya met his gaze steadily. From a man who thought hitting me was love. From a family who said I deserved it. From a life that was killing me slowly. And you chose Korea? I chose anywhere, but there. Kang nodded slowly, like he understood more than she'd said. I've had 12 experts try to help my daughter. Psychiatrists, educators, martial artists, even a monk. All of them failed. They had degrees, experience, credentials. You have none of those things. Yet you did something they couldn't. You made her listen. I didn't do anything special. I just treated her like a person instead of a project. That, Kang said, is precisely why I want to hire you. Maya blinked. Excuse me. $1 million for 1 year. Live on my estate. Be whatever my daughter needs. Not a teacher. Not a therapist. Just someone who sees her. You can't be serious. I'm always serious, Miss Johnson. Especially where my daughter is concerned. He pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. I had you investigated. I know about Marcus. I know about your mother's medical bills. I know you send her every spare dollar you make. I know you're drowning in debt from student loans you took out for a degree you never finished. I can make all of that disappear. Maya's throat went tight. Why would you invest that much in a waitress you just met? Because my daughter hasn't smiled, really smiled, in 10 years. And I saw her face on the security footage after she met you. She didn't smile, but she looked curious, interested, alive. That's worth more than money to me. I'm not qualified to help her. I'm not a professional. The professionals failed. Maybe what she needs isn't professional. Kang stood and walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. My wife died when Hana was 7. She watched her mother's life bleed out on a highway while I was too far away to save them. The people who killed her died screaming, but that didn't bring her back. It didn't heal my daughter. Nothing has healed my daughter. He turned back to face Maya, and for the first time, she saw past the chairman to the father underneath. The desperate father who'd run out of options. I'm not asking you to fix her, he said quietly. I'm asking you to see her. Just see her. The way you did at that diner. Can you do that? Maya thought about the girl from last night. The anger in her eyes that was really pain. The test she'd thrown out, expecting to be failed, surprised when she wasn't. The loneliness that clung to her like expensive perfume. She thought about her own loneliness. The years of being invisible or hypervisible, but never actually seen. She thought about what it had meant when someone finally looked past her skin color, her accent, her history, and just saw Maya. I have conditions, she said. Name them. I won't be her servant or her jailer. I'll be honest with her, even when it's uncomfortable. I'll treat her like a person, not a princess. Take it or leave it. Kang smiled, and it was the first real smile she'd seen from him. Miss Johnson, you're hired. Maya moved into the guest house on the Kang estate 3 days later with a single suitcase and a growing sense that she'd made either the best or worst decision of her life. The guest house was nicer than anywhere she'd ever lived. Hardwood floors, modern appliances, a bedroom with actual space to move around. Through the windows, she could see the main mansion, a sprawling traditional Korean structure updated with modern security and luxury. She also saw the guards. They were everywhere, dressed as gardeners and maintenance workers, but she recognized the way they moved, the way their eyes never stopped scanning. This wasn't just a home. It was a fortress. Mr. Park gave her a brief orientation, showed her the grounds, explained the household rules. Then he paused at the door to leave. Miss Johnson, a word of advice. Hana will test you. She tests everyone. The tutors who lasted longest were the ones who didn't take her behavior personally. I don't plan to take anything personally. Good. Because she's very skilled at finding weaknesses and exploiting them. It's not cruelty. It's survival. She spent 10 years learning to hurt people before they can hurt her. After he left, Maya sat in her new living room and wondered what she'd signed up for. $1 million sounded like freedom. But no amount of money meant anything if she couldn't actually help this girl. And despite what she'd told the chairman, she had no idea if she could. Hana didn't acknowledge her existence for the first 3 days. Maya would see her around the estate, getting into cars with her security detail, walking the grounds with expensive headphones on, sitting by the pool with her laptop. But Hana never looked at her, never spoke to her, acted like Maya was just another piece of furniture the chairman had purchased. On the fourth day, Maya woke up to find every piece of furniture had been removed from her guest house. Bed, couch, table, chairs. Everything. Just empty rooms and her suitcase sitting on the hardwood floor. She found Mr. Park in a panic, apologizing profusely, swearing it would be fixed immediately. "Don't bother," Maya said. "Leave it. Miss Johnson, you can't sleep on the floor. I've slept on worse. Leave it." That night, she made a pallet out of spare blankets and slept just fine. She'd grown up poor in Brooklyn. She'd slept on couches, floors, even a storage unit once when money got too tight. A hardwood floor wasn't going to break her. The next morning, she woke to find a single chair placed in the middle of her living room. A test. Hana was watching to see if she'd complain, demand her furniture back, report it to the chairman. Maya dragged the chair to the window, sat down with her coffee, and read a book. On day 6, the furniture reappeared as mysteriously as it had vanished. But that night, Maya found her clothes shredded in her closet. Every single item, cut to ribbons with scissors. She gathered the shredded remains, took them outside, and used them to start a small fire in one of the estate's decorative fire pits. Then she went to her suitcase, pulled out the 3 outfits she'd intentionally left packed, and hung them in the closet. She'd expected this. Girls like Hana didn't trust easily. They tested, pushed, tried to break you before you could break them. Maya had been that girl once, in her own way. After the first time Marcus hit her, she'd spent months testing him, waiting for him to do it again, trying to control when and how it happened. It was the illusion of power when you had none. On day 7, Hana finally spoke to her. Maya was in the garden, reading on a bench, when Hana appeared like a designer-clad ghost. She stood a few feet away, arms crossed, chin up in challenge. "Why don't you fight back?" Maya marked her page and looked up. "Fight back against what?" "The furniture. The clothes. I've been making your life hell, and you just take it." "You haven't been making my life hell. You've been trying to make me prove I'm like everyone else who comes into your life. People who either run away or try to control you. But I'm not everyone else." Hana's jaw tightened. "You're here for the money." "Yes." The admission seemed to surprise her. "At least you're honest." "I'm here for the money," Maya continued, "because I need it. My mother needs it. But that doesn't mean I'm going to treat you like a paycheck. You can burn every piece of furniture I own, shred every piece of clothing, make my life as uncomfortable as you want. I'll still be here. I'll still see you as a person, not a problem. You don't know me." "No, I don't. But I know what it's like to be looked at and not seen. To have people make assumptions about who you are based on what you look like or who your family is. I know what it's like to be so angry at the world that you'd rather burn it down than let it hurt you again." Hana's expression cracked, just for a second, vulnerability flashing through before the armor slammed back into place. "You don't know anything about me. Then tell me. Or don't. But stop trying to scare me away. It's not going to work." They stood in silence for a long moment, the Seoul afternoon quiet around them except for the distant sound of traffic beyond the estate walls. "Why did you come to Korea?" Hana asked finally. "To escape a man who thought he owned me." "Did he?" "For a while, I thought he did. Then I realized ownership is only real if you accept it. So I stopped accepting it." Hana sat down on the bench, not too close, leaving space between them. "My mother died when I was 7. Someone killed her to hurt my father. They wanted to send a message. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't bring her back." Hana's voice was flat, practiced, the tone of someone who'd said these words 1,000 times. "My father killed everyone involved. Wiped out an entire organization. But it didn't matter. She was still dead. I was still alone. You're not alone now. I have security guards and servants and a father who's terrified I'll end up like her. That's not the same as not being alone." Maya understood. She'd been surrounded by family in Brooklyn, aunts, uncles, cousins, but she'd never felt more alone than when she was bleeding in an emergency room and no one believed her story about falling downstairs. "No," Maya agreed. "It's not. So what are you supposed to be? My friend? My therapist? My babysitter? I'm supposed to be whatever you need me to be. What if I need you to leave? Then I'll leave. But not because you're testing me. Only because you actually want me gone." Hana looked at her then. Really looked at her, the same way she had at the diner. Searching for the lie, the angle, the ulterior motive. Maya let her look. She had nothing to hide. I don't know if I want you gone yet, Hana said finally. Then I'll stay. They sat in silence for a while longer. Maya went back to her book. Hana pulled out her phone and scrolled through it. But Maya could tell she wasn't actually reading anything. She was just existing in the same space, testing what it felt like to be near someone who didn't want anything from her except to be there. Eventually, Hana stood to leave. But she paused, looking back over her shoulder. That night at the diner. You said I wasn't scary, that I was just hurt. Yes. No one's ever said that to me before. Then everyone else was wrong. Hana nodded slowly, like she was processing something she didn't quite understand yet. Then she walked away, back toward the mansion, leaving Maya alone in the garden. It wasn't much. It wasn't a breakthrough or a miracle. It was just a conversation. But it was a start. And sometimes, Maya thought, starts are enough. The next 3 weeks established a rhythm. Maya didn't try to teach Hana anything. She didn't lecture or counsel or attempt to fix. Instead, she just existed in Hana's orbit, available but not intrusive, present but not demanding. Some days Hana ignored her completely. Other days she'd appear and ask random questions. Why did you choose Korea over other countries? Do you miss Brooklyn? What was your mother like before she got sick? Maya answered honestly, never volunteering more than Hana asked for, never pushing for reciprocal sharing. She understood instinctively that Hana needed to set the pace, control the interaction. It was the only control she had in a life orchestrated by her father's empire. On a Tuesday afternoon, Hana appeared at the guest house and announced, "We're leaving." "Leaving where?" "The estate. I'm bored. We're going into the city." Maya glanced out the window at the ever-present security detail. "Does your father know?" "I don't need his permission. I'm 17, not 7. But the defensive edge in her voice suggested this was a sore subject. They took one of the estate's more modest cars, a Mercedes that only screamed wealth instead of declaring war, with 2 security vehicles following at a careful distance. Hana directed the driver to Hongdae, the university district known for its street art and indie culture. As they walked the crowded streets, Maya noticed the stares. People recognizing Hana, or at least recognizing that she was someone important. The expensive clothes, the security detail, the aura of wealth and danger she carried like perfume. But there were other stares too, directed at Maya, a black woman in Korea, walking beside a rich Korean girl. She could feel the calculations happening in people's minds, the assumptions being made. Foreigner, American military, English teacher? She'd learned to recognize the look. "Do you feel it?" Hana asked quietly, her eyes straight ahead. "The stares. Every day. What do you do with them?" "I used to let them make me small. Then I learned to let them slide off. They're not really seeing me anyway. They're seeing their assumptions." Hana stopped walking in the middle of the street, forcing the crowd to flow around them. "That's exactly it. They look at me and see the chairman's daughter. The Mafia princess. The crazy girl who sends tutors to the hospital. They don't see me. Who are you?" The question seemed to stun Hana. She opened her mouth, closed it, frowned. "I don't know. I've been the chairman's daughter for so long. I'm not sure there's anything else underneath." "Then maybe we figure it out together." They spent the afternoon wandering. Hana showed Maya her favorite vintage clothing shop, run by an elderly woman who'd known her mother and treated Hana like a normal teenager. They got street food from vendors who didn't know or care about the Kang Empire. They sat in a small park and watched street performers. For a few hours, Hana was just a girl. Not a princess, not a problem, not a weapon in her father's arsenal. Just a 17-year-old experiencing the simple pleasure of existing without performance. On the drive home, Hana said, "My mother used to take me to Hongdae. Before she died, we'd sneak out, and she'd buy me hotdog, and we'd watch the street musicians. My father didn't know. It was our secret. She sounds like she was wonderful. She was everything. And then she was gone. And everyone looked at me with pity or fear, but no one actually saw me grieving. They saw a liability, a weakness in my father's armor, something to protect or exploit. Is that why you push people away? So they can't use you to hurt him?" Hana's laugh was bitter. "I push people away because everyone leaves eventually. Better to make them leave on my terms than wait for them to abandon me. I'm not leaving. Everyone says that. Everyone hasn't lived through what I've lived through. I know what it's like to be left. I wouldn't do that to someone else." Hana looked at her with those sharp, assessing eyes. "He hit you. Your ex." It wasn't a question. Maya had mentioned it once, briefly, and Hana had clearly filed it away, pulled it out now to test the truth of Maya's words. Yes. Why did you stay? Because I thought love was supposed to hurt. Because my family taught me that suffering was part of being a woman. Because I didn't know I deserved better until I almost died. What changed? Maya touched the scar on her ribs, hidden under her shirt. The scar from the night Marcus had kicked her so hard something broke inside. I woke up in the hospital and realized I had a choice. I could stay and let him kill me, or I could run and find out if I was worth saving. I chose to find out. And, are you worth saving? Every day I choose to believe I am. Hana went quiet for the rest of the drive. But when they arrived at the estate, she didn't immediately disappear to her room. Instead, she turned to Maya and said, "Thank you. For today, we can do it again whenever you want." Okay, Yoni. The word hung in the air between them. Yoni, older sister. It was the first time Hana had used it, and Maya understood the weight of what she was being given. Trust. Fragile, tentative trust, but trust nonetheless. Okay, Dongsing, Maya replied, using the word for younger sister. Hana's smile was small but real. The first real smile Maya had seen from her. Chairman Kang watched from his office window as his daughter and Maya walked across the estate grounds, talking quietly. Mr. Park stood beside him, holding the weekly security report. "The change is remarkable, sir," Park said. "Hana hasn't had an incident in 3 weeks. The staff reports she's been polite, even kind. Yesterday she apologized to the chef for her behavior last month." "Maya's doing," Kang said. "She's reaching her somehow. It's unprecedented. Should we be concerned about Miss Johnson's influence?" "No. Maya isn't manipulating her. She's just seeing her. That's all Hana ever needed. Someone to see her. The board is asking questions about the expense. The board can go to hell. I'd pay 10 times what I'm paying Maya if it means my daughter has a chance at happiness." Park nodded and left. Kang continued watching the 2 women in the garden. His daughter was laughing at something Maya said. Actually laughing. When was the last time he'd heard that sound? Before her mother died, probably. He'd built an empire to protect his family, to ensure no one could ever hurt them again. But the empire had become a cage, and his daughter had nearly suffocated inside it. Maya Johnson had walked into their lives with nothing but her own survival skills and had done what all his money and power couldn't do. She'd given Hana a reason to believe people could be trusted. He made a note to increase her salary and to make sure she was protected, because if his enemies learned how important she'd become to Hana, they'd use her. That's what enemies did. They found the things you loved and destroyed them. He wouldn't let that happen again. Not to Maya, not to his daughter. But even as he made plans and calculated risks, Chairman Kang felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. Hope. For the first time in 10 years, he had hope. Over the following weeks, the bond between Maya and Hana deepened. Maya taught Hana to cook simple meals, something the girl had never done in her life of servants and private chefs. They'd stand in the guest house kitchen at midnight, making ramen and terrible kimchi pancakes, laughing at their failures. Hana taught Maya more Korean, correcting her pronunciation with the patience she'd never shown her expensive tutors. She introduced Maya to K-dramas and Korean hip-hop and the complicated social hierarchies of Seoul high society. They developed rituals, late-night walks around the estate grounds, Sunday morning coffee in the garden, Thursday evenings watching terrible reality TV and mocking the contestants. Hana started therapy again, but this time with a therapist she chose herself. She even attended school online, completing assignments without sabotage or drama. The mansion staff watched the transformation with quiet awe. The hurricane had become a gentle breeze. The broken girl was finding her way back to herself. But peace never lasted in the Kang Empire, and enemies were always watching for weaknesses. The threat came on an ordinary Wednesday morning in the form of intelligence from Chairman Kang's security network. A rival organization, the remnants of a family the chairman had thought destroyed years ago, had been watching the estate. They'd noticed the black woman who came and went freely. They'd seen how Hana changed around her. They'd identified a weakness. Mr. Park delivered the news during the chairman's morning briefing. "Sir, we have confirmed surveillance on Miss Johnson. The Choi family has been tracking her movements for the past week. They know she's important to Hana." Kang's blood went cold. The Choi family. He thought he'd eliminated them completely after they'd killed his wife. Apparently, some had survived, scattered, regrouped. And now they were back, looking for revenge. Increase security on Maya immediately. I want a detail on her every time she leaves the estate. And get Hana to safety. If the choice are moving. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered it anyway. In his business, unknown numbers usually meant trouble. Chairman Kang. The voice was male, Korean, smooth with confidence. I believe I have something that belongs to you. Who is this? My name is Choi Min-suk. I'm calling about the American woman. Maya Johnson. We picked her up this morning when she left for her morning walk. Very trusting, walking without security. Almost like she didn't know she'd become valuable. Kang's hand tightened on the phone. If you hurt her, you'll what? Kill my family. You already did that. You murdered my father, my uncles, my cousins. You left me and my brother alive only because we were children. That was your mistake, Chairman. You should have killed us all. Where is she? Somewhere safe. For now, I'm going to call your daughter and let her know we have her precious yoni. Let's see if the Mafia princess is willing to trade herself for a waitress. After all, blood for blood, right? You took my mother from me. I take something precious from your daughter. The line went dead. Kang was already moving, shouting orders. Security teams mobilized. Trackers activated every possible resource to locate Maya. But the choice had been planning this carefully. They'd chosen their moment perfectly. He had to tell Hana. God help him. He had to tell his daughter that the woman she'd finally learned to trust had been taken because of him. Because of his empire. Because violence was a cycle that never truly ended. Hana was in her room, video chatting with her therapist, when her father knocked. She knew immediately something was wrong. He never knocked. Never interrupted her sessions. Appa. She used the informal word for father, something she hadn't called him in years. It's Maya, he said, and watched his daughter's world shatter for the second time in her life. The warehouse where they held Maya was cold and damp and smelled like rust and old fear. Her hands were zip-tied behind her back, her mouth gagged. Two men stood guard, both young, both carrying guns, both watching her with the dead eyes of people who'd seen too much violence too young. Maya's mind was racing, calculating odds, remembering self-defense techniques she'd learned after leaving Marcus. But zip ties and guns changed the math significantly. The older of the two men, Min-suk, she'd heard him called, approached her. He was maybe 30, handsome in a cruel way, with scars on his knuckles that told stories of violence. Do you know why you're here? He asked in English. Maya didn't respond. Couldn't, with the gag. He removed it. I asked you a question. Because you think I'm valuable to Hana, Maya said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Because you want to hurt Chairman Kang by hurting his daughter. Smart. The chairman killed my family 10 years ago. My mother died screaming. I was 8 years old. My brother was 6. We've spent a decade planning our revenge. And you, a random American waitress, you're the key to it all. I'm not the key to anything. I'm just someone who cares about a lonely girl. That caring makes you valuable. Hana Kang doesn't care about anyone. But she cares about you. So we're going to make her choose. Her life for yours. When she comes, and she will come, we'll kill her in front of you. Then we'll kill you. Then we'll let the chairman live with the knowledge that his empire cost him everyone he loved. Maya's stomach turned cold. Not for herself. She'd faced death before and made peace with her mortality. But for Hana, the girl had just started healing. Just started believing people could be trusted. This would destroy her. She won't come, Maya lied. She's smarter than that. Min-suk smiled. You really think she'll let you die? The first person who actually saw her? Please. She'll come. And she'll die. And it will be your fault for making her care. Back at the estate, Hana was making plans that terrified her father. She sat in his office, surrounded by his top security personnel, and stated calmly, I'm going to trade myself. Tell them I'll come. Absolutely not. Kang's voice was steel. I won't lose you two. You won't lose me. I'm not stupid. But I'm also not letting Maya die because she made the mistake of caring about me. This is my fault. Let me fix it. Hana, they'll kill you. Maybe. Or maybe they're expecting a scared little girl, and they'll get someone who's been raised in this life since birth. You've been teaching me how to survive in your world my whole life, Appa. Let me use it. Chairman Kang looked at his daughter, really looked at her, and saw someone he didn't recognize. Not the broken girl who'd hidden behind rage. Not the child he'd tried to protect. But a young woman who understood exactly what she was walking into and was choosing to do it anyway. There's another way, he said. We can negotiate. Offer them money, territory. They don't want money. They want blood. Mine specifically. For their mother. Hana's voice was calm, analytical. But they're expecting a victim. They're not expecting someone who spent 10 years learning to read people, to find weaknesses, to survive. Give me a wire. Give me backup at a distance. And trust that Maya taught me something you never could. What's that? That I'm worth saving. And so is she. For hours later, Hana stood outside the warehouse, alone except for the tracking devices hidden in her clothes and jewelry. Her father's men were positioned in a 3-block radius, waiting for her signal. But she'd made them promise to wait, to let her try first. She knocked on the rusted metal door. Min-suk himself answered, gun already drawn. The Mafia princess. You actually came. I came for my Yoni. Let her go, and you can have me. He laughed, but there was surprise in his eyes. You're different than I expected. Where's the rage? The threats? Where's the monster who sends tutors to the hospital? She grew up, Hana said simply. Maya taught me that being strong doesn't mean being cruel. That protecting people you love matters more than protecting your pride. So here I am. Honor your word. Let her go. Inside the warehouse, Maya heard Hana's voice and felt her heart break. The stubborn, brave, foolish girl had actually come. Min-suk led Hana inside, and the two women locked eyes across the space. Maya shook her head, trying to tell Hana to run, to leave, to save herself. But Hana just smiled that small, real smile she'd learned to give. Hi, Dongsing, Maya said, her voice rough with emotion. Hi, Yoni. I'm getting you out of here. No, you're not. You're going to. I'm going to do what you taught me. I'm going to choose to believe I'm worth saving. And so are you. Min-suk raised his gun, pointing it at Hana's head. Touching. Really. But this ends now. You die, she dies, and your father learns that power can't protect the people you love. You're right, Hana said. Power can't protect people. But love can. And Maya taught me the difference. She gave a hand signal, one her father's men had been waiting for, and the world exploded into controlled chaos. Flash grenades through windows. Security teams breaching doors. Precision and overwhelming force. In the confusion, Hana ran to Maya, cutting her restraints with a knife she'd hidden in her boot. Can you run? With you? Anywhere. They made it out together, covered by the chairman's best security operatives. Min-suk and his men were apprehended alive, a mercy Hana had specifically requested, understanding now that the cycle of revenge needed to end somewhere. Outside, Chairman Kang was waiting. Hana ran into his arms for the first time in years, and he held her like she was 7 again, like she was precious, like she was everything. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry this life touched you, that my choices put you in danger. Your choices also brought Maya to me, so maybe some good came from it. 6 months later, the Kang estate looked different. The walls were still high, the security still tight, but there was laughter now. Hana had graduated high school with honors and started a foundation for orphans in her mother's name. Maya ran a successful restaurant, the chairman's investment, where the elite and the everyday met as equals. On Hana's 18th birthday, they celebrated with an intimate gathering. No lavish society event. Just the people who actually mattered. Maya, Mr. Kim from the diner, the mansion staff who'd stayed, a few genuine friends Hana had made. Maya gave her a journal filled with letters she'd written over the months, moments of pride and love and hope. Hana stood to make a toast, glass raised. They say you can't choose your family. But Yoni taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when your world is falling apart, and who stays when you're trying to put it back together. To Maya, who saw me when I was invisible, who stayed when I was impossible, and who taught me that being loved doesn't mean being controlled. Thank you for being my sister. Chairman Kang watched from nearby, seeing his daughter smile the way she had before her mother died. Maya had done what all his power couldn't. She'd given Hana back her humanity. As the evening wound down, Maya and Hana stood silhouetted against the Seoul skyline. Two women who'd been outsiders in different ways, who'd found home in each other. Do you ever regret it? Hana asked. Coming here? Getting involved with our mess? Maya smiled. Not even for a second. You gave my life purpose. You reminded me that surviving isn't the same as living. We saved each other, didn't we? Yeah, Dongsing. We did. In Seoul, they still said Chairman Kang could topple governments with a phone call. But Maya knew the truth. The most powerful man in Korea had been brought to his knees by a 17-year-old girl who just wanted someone to see her. And sometimes, The greatest empires aren't built on fear. They're built on the moment someone says, "I see you, and you're not alone." The story of Hana and Maya teaches us that true strength isn't found in walls we build or masks we wear, but in the courage to let someone see our wounds. It reminds us that healing comes not from expensive solutions or perfect credentials, but from genuine connection between two people who understand what it means to be unseen. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the person who stays when everyone else runs, who sees potential in our brokenness, who reminds us that we're worth saving. And perhaps most importantly, that the cycles of violence and loneliness that seem unbreakable can end when someone chooses love over fear, connection over protection, and vulnerability over power. Thank you for taking this journey with Hana and Maya. May their story remind you that you're never too broken to be loved, never too lost to be found, and never too alone to matter to someone. Sometimes, the person who changes everything is the one who simply refuses to look away.